And what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Drop a Line Takeover Part 2. Joining us today in the hot seat is author Diana Estell, author of The Abyss of the Fallen, Book 1 in the Legends of the Fallen trilogy. Hey, welcome, Diana. Welcome to the hot seat and welcome to Drop a Line Takeover Part 2. How are you doing today?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just
All
fine. How
right.
about
Okay.
myself?
Thank you for having me on, Andrew.
Oh, no, thank you for coming. So let's jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm married. I have two daughters, and just been writing my whole life, basically. Been into fantasy all my life, and when Star Wars came out when I was 10, it just kind of blew me away. And I'm actually a anthropologist by schooling, and I also have a nursing background, and I'm also a black belt in martial arts. So I mean, I have a vast array of things that I've done. But even with all those, even with some nursing that I had, which wasn't too much, but even with nursing and with anthropology and archaeology, I still always seem to imagine to write stories into even my papers, which the teachers noticed. So
Oh,
that's just a
wow.
little bit about me.
That's exciting. So what would you say is your earliest memory of writing?
Oh man, goodness. Probably being in my closet. I was a journalist, and I would come up with these kind of like cartoon looking things, but it was almost like a daily news kind of a thing, and I would make stories up about what people were doing, and I had this little office in my closet, and my friends, I would pass them the news reports. Now, I never wanted to be a journalist, but that's kind of the earliest thing, actually, the earliest recollection I have as far as that goes. But probably within about those same years, I was probably like 7 years old, I guess. I was always creating things in my head, whether they were on paper or not. But so
Awesome. And what would you say is the moment that you knew you wanted to become a writer?
Oh man. I would say that would have to do with my dad. Unfortunately, he's not alive now, but
I'm sorry.
thank you. I was 12 at the time, and I don't know, just always, coming up with stories in my head and writing things down here and there. And my dad told me, Diana, I think you're going to be oh, hey, Scotty, I think you're going to be an author one day. And I didn't realize it would take this long. And I actually said acknowledge in my acknowledgments of my dad, had he been alive now, he wouldn't have been shocked. He just would have said, "What took you so long?" you know. But I think sometimes people just need years to pass before some things come to fruition for whatever reason. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really exciting story. I
Yeah.
mean, I always love to ask that question to the guests that come on here
Yeah.
because it's like I remember how important that moment was for me.
Oh
Um,
wow.
because for me personally, I used to do a lot of fan fiction for like a favorite show
Oh,
of
okay.
mine.
Hmm.
Used to watch anime, a show called Dragon Ball Z,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and that was my thing. And eventually, it got to the point where I wanted to write my own stories for it.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, from there, I just knew that I could create worlds of my own. And I just all I would have ever wanted to do was just get lost in
Yeah.
those worlds.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Definitely.
So I just want to stop here real quick, and I want to thank Scotty for jumping on and being the first one
Yes,
to
thank
comment
you.
on the stream. And I do want to apologize to everybody for the late stream. That is 100% on me. Had some
No,
personal things to take care of, but we're here now, and the show is rolling, and I'm so excited to have you here today.
yeah,
Uh,
it's all good. It's all good, Andrew. It's just a blessing that you have me on. So it's totally cool.
Yeah, and the night's only beginning, and we got a lot of exciting things to come. We're gonna have Diane in the hot seat, so she'll get to answer some random questions. And
Yep.
poor Nick was in the hot seat yesterday, and I threw a
Oh
few
yeah,
questions at him that he wasn't prepared to answer.
yeah. Well, that's the way it goes, isn't it?
That's the beauty of it.
That's the nature of the
So,
game.
you are an author,
Yes, I
and
am.
your book is called The Abyss of the Fallen.
Yes.
I love the title, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So I have to ask, how did you come up with
Oh,
your title, and how did you come up with your series title? Because
oh
it
man.
it is such a difficult thing to name a book, let
Yeah,
alone
it
name a
is.
series.
I okay. This is so. My youngest daughter is going to be 20, so she would have had to been shoot maybe 8 or probably 8 years old, and I had a title that I thought was good. Looking back, it would have been you wouldn't have had me on. Let's just say it was such a horrible title, and my husband kept saying, "This is not a good title. This is not a good title." And I was putting her to bed one day. Like I said, she had to be maybe 7, 8 around that time frame. And I was laying down with her in bed, and I was kind of working on some of the plot details and some of the inner workings of some of the evil characters, if you will, and how the protagonist is working through that. And the abyss is in the ground, and her palace is in the ground. And then I knew some of the things that my protagonist was doing, and I literally laid and while Darian was laying in bed, while she was laying in bed, I said, "Okay, everybody, I had the title." And my oldest was in her room, and she's going to be 20, 23. And my husband, "What is it?" "It's Abyss of the Fallen." "We like that. And that's really how it stuck. I mean, I kind of ran it through them, and I heard this. I mean, Darian was probably too small to even care, but my oldest daughter was like, "Yeah." My husband's like, "Yeah." And as it turned out to be more profound than what I thought because, excuse me, as I was saying, I was kind of working on these plot issues and these inner workings of these characters, and it wound up being just kind of whether the title is good or not. I hope it is. It just seems to fit at least my world, you know.
Absolutely, and it's
Yeah.
definitely a title that is gripping. Because
Oh,
like
thank you so
I was
much.
reading it over, like Abyss of the Fallen, Abyss of the Fallen, and I'm like, Abyss is such a strong word, and it's so
Yeah.
open ended. It's like the abyss could be
Yes, it
anything.
could be anything.
And
Right.
I know for me, my personal experience is Dark Souls. Like Dark Souls, there's a place called the Abyss. No
Oh,
light is around in there, and it's like, the character drops into this big giant hole into the oblivion,
well,
and that's where this big boss is. And
yeah,
so when I see Abyss, it's such a strong word. It's
I
got
know.
such energy behind it. And then of course you have the Fallen. It's like the abyss
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
fallen. And there's
That
so much to that.
right. And that was kind of the part that I never really thought about until I don't know how long it passed, but some time passed. And I thought, man, that really kind of sums up my world. You have this dark pit area that is darkness and evil scheming, and then you have these angels who fell, and that's where they're at. And it didn't dawn on me for quite a while that title that I came up with, good or not, it just fits my world, and yeah, it that was I don't know, that just took some time.
Yeah, I mean, a great title does take time, and it takes a
Yeah,
lot
thank
of
you.
patience. I mean, just to make you feel like 10 times better, and I'll go on and embarrass myself like for the betterment of everyone. But Um, so in terms of bad title names, I will be the one that takes the cake. I am sure. My very first story, the title that I called this, and Alec never lets me live this down. It was called Dark Hole Hunters, and it was literally a story about a bunch of people that would go into dark holes and hunt creatures. It was so bad. It was so terrible that that story didn't get very far.
Dark hole hunters, when that's exactly what they're. Oh man. You know
Yeah,
what? You know what? Honestly, I mean, I don't know. That title, like I said, everyone hated it. They're like, that title's terrible. And I think we all go through it.
oh, absolutely.
We all have something that we can't live down.
Sanguinary Song, that wasn't its first title. There was another title entirely, and it was an acronym. And I remember going through the process with that, and we're like, can we do something better with it? And I remember coming up with Sanguinary Song, and it was just so perfect. I love the word sanguinary.
That's actually a pretty title.
And song is like they're so open-ended. It's like
Right.
what's going on in here? So I feel like as an author, we have that aha moment where it's like we know that that
Yeah,
title fits.
exactly. And I was just laying with my daughter, putting her to sleep, and there you
Imagine that.
go.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
So we learned about the title and how awesome it sounds.
Thank you.
So do you want to take a moment to sort of explain what your story is about to the audience?
Yeah. So my that's interesting too, because I mean, when I first started pitching it, you just kind of I realized how little I did know about my book until everything started to become fleshed out. Well, the nutshell is that Dagon, the protagonist, is trying to save this mortal girl, Mary, from hell. He doesn't know how, he doesn't know if he can, he doesn't know if he's going to live. He doesn't even know 100% if she's really real. I mean, his heart believes he's real. And so he's trying to save her from, yeah, from going into the abyss. If you
Oh, wonderful. Oh, and how about the series name?
The
Uh, wh-
series name really got worked out through my publishing house. I had a totally different name to encompass all the other two books coming up, but it was one that they didn't think it wasn't as treacherous as that name that everyone was like, that stinks. But the Legends of the Fallen, really, I let them kind of sink that one into existence, because that one just seems to be it seems to fit. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, what I had, and I don't want to, because I may wind up using it for another book series, but I'm really glad that they picked this one. Sometimes other people, they just know best, and you just need to let people come alongside you.
Oh, absolutely. And did you mention that you were actually signed with a company?
Yes, with a publishing house.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the publishing house is called Brimstone Fiction. All they do sci-fi and fantasy, and it is a it's a publishing house that uh, it's a Christian publishing house, actually,
Okay.
but they publish things that are secular also in nature, because a lot of people have you know ties to some kind of religion or whatever you want to call it, and then we all live in this world, and so the way that they have published their books kinds of reaches different stratas of different people, if you will, and I think that's really good than pigeonholing it in one group or pigeonholing it in the other. It's kind of the way I look at it. I mean, I always listen to a punk music, and back in the day it was underground or mainstream. Well, in a way, it's kind of good to go mainstream, because you're going to reach different people for whatever reason. So, but it's a beautiful publishing house. They've, The people there have been extremely helpful to me. This is a brand new, just like you and Alec have been really helpful to me. Um, but yeah, they're just it's a real good house.
That's awesome. And I always like to talk to somebody with any publishing house experience, because a lot of the authors that do come on the show are independently
Okay.
published.
Yeah.
So it's is there any advice you can give us when it comes to working with a publishing house? Like any words
Yeah.
of wisdom in terms of maybe um, the process itself? Because I know it could be a little bit difficult. Whereas you're an independent author, you're generally used to making all the decisions yourself.
Right.
But in a
Right.
publishing house, you might have to sort of work with them.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, for me, when I started this process, um, I would go to like conferences and whatnot, and then you would have a chance to maybe sit down with a publishing house. And I didn't have an agent at that time, and then you're basically it's like trying to sell your house without an agent, and which can happen, but it's very very rare if it does happen at all. So I think, I mean, what I tell people now is to try to get an agent sooner than later. Mine was way after the fact. Probably when I mean, I should have done it sooner, but again, I didn't really know that. And because a lot of publishing houses, they don't accept uh, books or ideas without having an agent as well. So I think that's what I mean. If I could tell myself, go back in time 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I would say save yourself some time and try to get an agent. The thing about getting an agent is that you can actually query as many agents as you want, but in the to submit a book to a publishing house, sometimes you can't submit as much as you would like to submit. But
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of a tough thing, isn't it? It shouldn't be, but it is. And it's
Well, absolutely. And I
I
know
don't
the
know.
process itself could be a little intimidating. I
Yeah.
know, I'm trying to break out into the literary agent world myself for
Oh, okay.
independent authors to sort of guide, to guide authors in a better direction than when I was. Because when I first started, I absolutely had no experience. I had no help. And it
Yeah.
was like the blind leading the blind. And I had to
Honestly,
learn everything on my own,
me too.
you
Now,
know?
once I started going to conferences and once I started meeting people, and I didn't even know there was a word count. I mean, my this novel that people can buy now, which is a funny thing to say to myself because it's been such a long process. It was 280,000 words. Nobody
Wow.
would. That's huge. And my genre is like 75 to 80,000, maybe a little bit higher than that. That was a learning curve. So
Wow.
just things that you just mentioned, I didn't know either. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. And I would feel like the most important thing that I guess we could maybe mention is to know your agents and sort of like what their expertise at, what they
yeah,
expect from you.
right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I've been blessed. My agent's he's really, really good. He's constantly like if he if he actually contracts an author, he's really diligent about trying to sell your piece. But I definitely would tell people to get an agent. I don't know if that was if that was helpful or not. The process itself between writing a proposal, between writing a one sheet, between writing a query, it's challenging in its own regard. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's any shortcuts or not, but
Well, and that's the thing too, because most agents are looking for that next big thing. It's
right,
very rare to see an independent author get picked up by an agent unless they're getting signed with somebody like
right,
another publishing house.
right.
Um, and I feel like that's the thing I kind of want to bridge the gap on myself.
I see.
I would like to be able to give that person who might be looking for an agent down the road that little bit of
Right.
experience.
Yeah,
And
because it can be very daunting. It can be very
yeah,
daunting and very frustrating. And sometimes you just want to look, is this even worth it? I mean, let's be honest. It's a hard thing, but
I was
I know.
terrified when I first published, and I was doing it for fun. Like, I can
Yeah.
only imagine somebody publishing because they're, this is their career. This is what they're, 100%, um,
Oh man,
on
right.
board for. My goal when I first got published, it was only to publish and know that I could do it. Like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could go through that a process, that I could publish, and then
Right.
everything just came after. It was like, I really
Right.
enjoy doing this. I would like to do this, part time. And
Hmm.
from there, the author in me was sort of born. I never wanted to
Right.
share my stuff with anybody, and I
Yeah.
was carefully pushed into, letting
Yeah.
down my guard.
Yeah. Kind of have a somewhat of a similar, well, a little bit. I mean, different, a little bit similar story. I mean, I just had a. I mean, for me, it was kind of cathartic as well to put some of my past issues so much in the past, but to be able to share a story that it's really been near and dear to my heart for many, 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 many years. And so to be able to create that, um, I mean, I didn't know if I'd get published. I mean, who would? I mean, like that. I mean, and I just wanted to finish. I just wanted to write a story that I wanted to read myself. But it became more than that. It became like almost like a little bit of redemption for things that in my past. It's kind of neat how that has come through my story. You know.
Absolutely. And I feel like everybody who does publish has like their own set of reasons for why they publish.
Right.
And, just to have that feeling of I can accomplish this. And then
It's amazing.
I
Yeah.
got my first like legit, um, I would say 5-star review. Like I've gotten good reviews before on Amazon, but I got this really concrete, um, review where they really reviewed the story in depth, gave me a lot of details on what they liked, and it was so helpful for me. And I
Yeah.
remember I was almost in tears as I was reading this review. I wanted to cut the review out. I wanted to frame it, put it on my wall because
Right. Right.
you know, it goes to that time where it's like I look at where I came and where many authors start, where they have
Right.
a story that they really love, and then to see somebody actually read it and be like, "I love this,"
Right.
it makes your day.
It does. And I mean, I had rejections from different publishing houses and whatnot, and cried a lot. Would cry, and for like because you take it personal, right?
Absolutely.
You said your books weren't ready for like a decade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's Amber.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining, Amber.
Yeah,
And
thank
yes,
you, Amber. Yeah, I mean,
she has known me forever.
yeah, it just takes such a long time. I never would have thought it would take that long, but I also had small kids at the time. They're adults now, but they were smaller. It's very, very challenging. It's a matter of balancing because writing can be so obsessive. You have these characters, they're so obsessive, but you still have a family. I'm still a
Absolutely.
mother, I'm still a wife. School still needed me, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, grocery shopping, all that stuff had to get done. So, and and it just took a long time to figure out who these characters were. But I know a decade, honestly, that's just I know it's crazy, isn't it? Taking that long.
Absolutely. And to be a mom and to sort of have all those responsibilities as
Yeah.
an author, you must have a really strong support system to be able to
Yeah.
sort of separate between those two worlds.
Yeah, I've been really blessed in that regard. Really, really blessed. I mean, I've often apologized to my girls because I felt like there was times I wasn't around, but they never. I mean, it's just a balance. It's such a balance thing, and I don't think my experience is probably very similar to a lot of mothers, or maybe even guys for that matter. But I bet I never knew it. I never thought. I think if I would have thought it would, if someone would have told me it would take in 10 years, I don't know. I maybe would have gone screaming to the night, or maybe just said, "Oh, come on, you're just whatever." But sometimes, oh, they still, yeah. Thank you so much. That's so sweet, Amber. Thank you so much. Yeah, because it is very challenging. It's very challenging. I wrote my novel most of the time, probably 90% of the time, from 9 to 2 in the morning because everyone was asleep, no laundry, no dishes, no phone calls, no school, no dentist appointments. You know what I'm saying? And I could let the creative valve just blast open. During the daytime, when you get phone calls or you have to pick up somebody from school or you got a choir event, you know what I mean? It just goes on and on. Well, then the valve never goes away, but you just kind of have to just kind of close it a little bit so that you can. The main thing is I'm a mother, and
Right.
a wife. I love my books, and I'm so glad that God gave this ability, whatever you want to call it, to do this. But that is my main love is to be with my children. So, and thank goodness there's where some lovely teachers at these conferences, even my Brimstone team, they really encourage you and help you manage your time. It can be a juggle. It's not impossible, obviously, but it's a juggle.
Absolutely. And, I sort of have a little bit of experience of that myself. Like, I think out of the whole of One True Promotion, I'm
Hmm.
sort of the one that takes on the responsibility of scheduling and making sure each person is where
Oh
they're supposed
wow.
to be at what giving time.
Oh wow.
And,
Okay.
so I mean, I sort of understand how it is to schedule and make sure it's like, hey,
Yes,
do you have enough books for this event? Do you need help setting up for this event? Um,
that's true.
you
Yeah.
know, this is how much it is to table at this event. Are you going to this event? If so, it's going to be, this much to table at this event. We can
Right.
split it. We can work on it that way. Like, what would you like to do?
Yeah. Right.
So, a lot of people on the interview here don't know, but we all have a pre-interview. And on a pre-interview, we ask our guests to list a bunch of facts about themselves. And there's one fact that jumped out at me from the start. And that was that that you wanted a dragon ever since you were a little
Yeah.
girl, and your parents
Yes.
couldn't buy you one, so you
No.
wrote them.
Child abuse. Isn't that not child abuse? You know what I mean? Come on. That is an abuse if I ever saw one right there. Yes, I asked my parents. They wouldn't give it to me. Dang it. I don't know. But
So I have to ask, as a big dragon enthusiast myself, I love dragons,
I did too.
especially in movies and TV. Smaug is one of my favorite
Oh,
dragons.
from Lord of the
So I
Rings. Yeah.
have to ask, where
The
is your
Hobbit.
love of dragons coming from? What sort of inspiration for dragons do
Ah.
you have?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to martial arts. The Asian kind of philosophy and the motifs, if you will. And I actually have an art minor background as well. So I think there's just something ancient about these myths of these beings, of these creatures, right? And then when you add in Tolkien, and of course I read those books as well, and with the Hobbit, and you just, and the lore of the dragons, they were just so appealing for on every kind of aspect. And I don't know, they well, I also, a friend of mine said, well, Diana, maybe you chased the dragons because you don't want to be chased. Like, maybe, but I have a very dear friend of mine. She's so sweet. Her voicemail at one point said, hey, if you can't get a hold of me, I'm probably chasing dragons now, and she's just a dear friend of mine. And I don't know what it is. What do you think, Andrew, about that? It's kind of a timeless, uh,
Yeah, like
I
when
don't
you think of
know.
mystical creatures, you think dragons are usually at the top of it, and it's like it's
Right.
the most known mythical creature in terms of media, I would argue.
I
And
would think so too.
especially with authors like Tolkien, and you see dragons everywhere, whether it's
Right.
media or business proposals, and
And they're just cool.
dragons are just cool,
They're just cool. And my parents, honestly, okay, everybody, if you got kids out there, buy them a dragon.
Just buy them a dragon. Forget the pony. We'll go right for the dragon. Dragon is much more practical. Forget driving to work. Forget gas. The dragon will just pick you up and fly you to work.
Fly you to work.
Easy.
And
Cut down, I'll give you 100%.
And a really great beware of the dragon. You know, I said beware of the dog. Beware of the dragon.
The dragon does bite.
That would be a really good bump, a thing on your door, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you know what? Having a dragon would make the hot seat 10 times easier.
Yeah, you'd be hot. Your butt would be on fire.
So, your two favorite subjects, sci-fi and fantasy, correct?
Yes.
So I have to ask, as a big sci-fi and fantasy fan myself, I have to know what your favorite sci-fi movies / TV shows are, and I have to know what your favorite fantasy movies and TV shows are.
Oh man! Well, Star Wars.
Star Wars is a big one. I had a feeling.
Star Wars, hands down. I was 10 years old when the first one came out. And I was wearing a dress. I remember I was sitting in these old rickety chairs and my brother was next to me. And when that music came on, it just literally rocked me into the galaxy. And I have never landed on the ground since. So those were really, and then of course, Star Trek. I watched Star Trek as a kid and, you know, and was even into like role playing with Star Trek. But Star Wars definitely is by hands down my favorite. But then I love Marvel. I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a DC comic fan. Can't wait to see the Black Widow. So, you know, but then fantasy, my goodness, we mentioned like, you know, Tolkien, Narnia. Also, I'm a big Narnia fan. I love his books. I love C.S. Lewis. They of course were professors in the same university, very good friends. And we were actually able to see where they actually had their meetings in England. And but you know, I think for me the fantasy, I mean, with Marvel and how they you know, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff is just you know. And then we were just a friend of mine's where we were talking about like the old Sinbad movies. You know, it's kind of herky jerky. The, you know, technology was so limited back then, but it was pretty cool. It's still pretty cool. I love what was that one with a Percy Jackson, of course. I like, you know, those kind of things. Clash of the Titans, you know. So it goes back. It goes way back. For me.
That's awesome. I know for me, my two favorites is Aliens.
Oh, that's another
one.
I
love Aliens. I can't get enough of Aliens. And I love Lord of the Rings, by far my favorite.
Oh,
so
I know.
It's like sci-fi, fantasy, perfect match. Those are the two that I grew up watching.
Me too. I the Aliens too. I watched those too. I watched them over and over and over again. Yeah, and the Terminator. I'm just going to say I'm a Terminator fan. That's just the way it is.
Terminator is just, I mean, I would argue that Terminator and Aliens have withstood the test of time in terms of
it? It really has. It really has. It really has.
Especially Alien. You look at how big of a following it still has to this day.
Yeah.
And, you know, here they are making, you know, prequel movies towards the original series, and I can't get enough of it, to be honest.
I know.
I just want them to keep giving me more.
I know, it's amazing. It really is.
So we talked a little bit about your interests with dragons and, of course, fantasy and science fiction. So I got to ask, how did you develop your style when writing?
Oh, golly.
Because your story's focused on what, fantasy for?
Yes.
Mostly more fantasy driven. So it's like I'm very curious what sort of process went through your mind when it comes to fantasy, because, you know, especially when you have writers like Tolkien who create such, you know, fantastic worlds, and it's like it's a lot of information you got to give your author, but you don't, or your audience, but you don't want to info dump. And I feel like that's the issue I run into with writing fantasy, is I just want to tell everybody everything.
I know. And honestly, I did do info dumping, and that's where beta readers come in. And God bless these people that take the time to read some of the stuff that had to be bad. And then, well, you know, it's just editing, right? And, but I started out actually wanting to write a historical fiction book for my girls at the time, who were 8 and 10, or whatever, however that went. And it turned very fantasy very quick and very adult. I mean, to young teen to adult very quick. And it boggled my mind. I don't even know if I can write a historical book. I don't, and initially it kind of bothered me because I kept trying to push out this book that was, because I actually love reading historical fiction and memoirs and whatnot. I'm a big Civil War buff. So, and it just wouldn't work out. But now, on hindsight, it doesn't shock me because that's kind of what I did. That was me anyway. So the young me hasn't changed. I just gotten older. I just have more responsibilities, but kind of who you are in your dreams, they just never go away. They can change. They can maybe take a back seat. Maybe there's, hopes deferred, but your soul and who you are is who you are. And I think that's kind of how how I kind of started writing that. If that answered your question, if I'm sorry if I
Yeah,
didn't,
no, absolutely. And that's the thing too. It's like I'm so happy you mentioned that you liked historical fiction because that was my favorite
Me
to read.
too.
I,
I
s-
love
I
it.
can't get enough of historical fiction.
Oh, I love it.
I
I
got a
love it.
whole shelf full of historical fiction just sitting
Me
there waiting to
too.
read
Me too.
it.
Me too. I have a lot on the Civil War. I'm a big Civil War buff, But I mean, but there's something with, fantasy is just such a neat thing, and sci-fi, just to kind of lose yourself, to be in another world and whatnot. And sometimes for me, it was a safety valve. I mean, I had parts of my life that was pretty chaotic. And you don't have to obviously have those chaotic times to enjoy it, but you know what I'm saying? It just kind of gives you a, I don't know, it just can transport you to another dimension, another time. And
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the people who are interested in fantasy novels are typically people who do like to retreat into another world and sort of
yeah.
get lost in that brand new perspective that's a little different from their own.
Right.
And there's so much with fantasy, and fantasy is such a well-respected genre that
Right.
provides with so many classic moments. And
Right.
it there's nothing cooler, in my opinion, when I'm picking up a new fantasy book than to figure out the world building and like the magic
Oh
systems
man.
and what kind of world am I entering? Is it going to be a Middle Ages, high
Mm-hmm.
Middle Ages, low
High
Middle
fantasy.
Ages
Mm-hmm.
type thing? Is there going to be a heavy emphasis on magic? Maybe not magic. Is it going to be a little bit more like historical fiction, or is it going to
Right.
be like high fantasy? And there's
Right.
just so many different facets of fantasy to just get lost in.
Right. 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 And that's kind of me when I studied anthropology. I mean, and archaeology, you are creating worlds. I mean, the world's already there, but you are putting your thoughts on, who lived there, how old is a society, where did they go, what's left behind, so and then I was in D&D. I always liked D&D. So you put those together, and even with academia, I was world building in a way. They were living, well, they were, a lot of them, of course, were dead societies, but they definitely were real. They were
Right.
real societies. So, and you had to infer, and you had to, draw, like, theses out to say, okay, but so that's kind of, in that way, no knowledge is lost. I haven't really been in anthropology for very little. I didn't realize, of course, my book would be coming around. But and I often thought, oh, this degree I have, and I spent time a little bit over in Kenya doing research, but no knowledge is wasted knowledge. I was able to take that, as far-fetched as it sounds, to be able to work my world. Maybe it's not, maybe it's kind of unorthodox, but that's kind of how I was able to. I was already doing it anyway.
But I would argue that's such a interesting detail to be able to include in your stories. To be able to, you could have a character that's coming across a set of bones, and then you can add in that the detail, maybe a character has experience with analyzing bones, or
Right.
maybe they know something about this particular civilization and
Right.
what they were at some point,
Right.
you know?
Because they were somebody, you know.
And that's the cool thing about history and cultural anthropology, right? I'm a history major. I graduated my degree in ancient history. So it's like cultural anthropology and history, they're hand in hand. They're both trying to answer
And
the
mine
same
was
question.
cultural anthropology.
Yeah, and cultural anthropology was so much fun. That
Oh, I
class,
know.
I
I
had a
know.
wonderful teacher. He had a great sense of humor. And he was just so excited to talk about these different civilizations and what
Yeah.
was so cool about them, what we wouldn't know about them, but we should know about them.
Right. Right. So, in a way, I mean, in a way, it seems like, they maybe just listening to you more. It just seems like, okay, maybe they do fit, but it just, but it's kind of bizarre when you're doing it. You're like, okay, I spent all this money on my degree. I did this over here
Yeah.
for you here, and you're like, oh, I'm not doing it now, but you are. I am. It's just out of the box, kind of, and it's not for academia, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, it helps you solidify your identity as an author. I mean,
oh, that's
like
true.
like my experience as a historian and historical fact, it helps me develop my story for Sanguinary Song. I mean, you're talking about mythology, supernatural creatures, all falls into
Yeah,
the realm of history,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
Alec, on the other hand, who doesn't have an experience with a historical degree. He has a literary degree.
yeah, right.
So he's very well versed in, things like rhyming, understanding the right phrases to say,
Right.
and that's his experience. And
That's
it's
his
like,
experience, right.
yeah, the two of us are always bouncing ideas off each other. He's like, all right, I need to know some historical facts about this region. I need to know about the history of sword fighting. I need to know about the history of this, that, and it's like, all right, cool. I'll help you with that. You help me with with rephrasing things to make it sound better. Here we go.
Isn't
Let's
that
let's work
cool?
together and make our books better.
That it now there, I'm actually part of a writers group called Write on Joliet in Joliet, Illinois. And there again, it's kind of like just what you said with Alec. You have these individuals that have different expertise. They're on a different journey with their writing, and they're such great people to bounce ideas off and go, wait a minute, I didn't know that, and so it's
Absolutely.
very, very helpful because I mean, I do have knowledge of swords for martial arts, so I was able to draw on that. And my minor is in a Japanese art,
Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
so there, I was able to draw on that. I mean, a little bit in this novel.
But I mean, that's the thing. If you're watching this broadcast right now and you're thinking about becoming an author, you're thinking about doing anything in general. The most important thing I would argue that you should know or take away from this conversation here is that a strong support system is super important, no matter what
Super
career
important.
path you're going in.
Oh man. Yeah, because I've had some really precious friends talk me off a cliff, and I don't mean a literal cliff. I mean, especially when you get rejected because it hurts. I mean, there's no way
Absolutely.
around it. I mean, and everyone, Diana, they're not turning you down as a person. And I know that's true, but dang, does it feel like it, And I literally cried probably one time about 5 hours, just crying. And this dear friend of mine said, Diana, okay, you got to pick yourself up and you got to go. And the other thing is, there's something about being, it I don't know. You just have to believe in your story. It's, there's just something that, I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but,
No, absolutely. I
there's
would I
just,
would agree that that's such a core important fact too, because it's a part of you believing in your story and believing that it can succeed that sort of makes you take that risk and to
yeah,
publish it, because like going back to what I was saying earlier, I had no
yeah.
intention of publishing.
Well,
And Alec was the person who actually pulled me aside, was like, you need to do this.
oh
You want to do
man,
this, you need to do this, give it a shot.
I had somebody like that too. I had an Alec back in my
Yeah.
past too. Yeah.
if it wasn't for him kicking me in the butt, I wouldn't have published. And
If I didn't have a friend back in 19, my word, 2010, I who knows, we wouldn't maybe not even been sitting here, you know.
yeah,
So thank goodness to these Alex in our life.
yeah, they're giving us the kick in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a hard gig.
So want to thank everybody who's joining us so far. A
Yes,
lot of
thank
you
you
guys are
guys.
joining us on Twitch, YouTube, and of course on Facebook. If you guys are liking what you see, please hit that subscribe button.
Please, these guys are brilliant, man.
Yes, we definitely would like to build up our YouTube. So yes, please, 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 please hit that subscribe button. You'll actually see our little reminder popping up on the screen fairly shortly. We also have a Discord, and our Discord is a lively community. We're
Oh,
trying to
okay.
gather some like-minded people together, and you guys could talk anything from writing to movies, anything that you enjoy. We also have a live gaming section where you can actually play games
Nice.
with people. I know they have an Among Us game going,
Woo.
but yeah, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hitting that like button. I'm so glad. Oh, thank you so much, Scotty. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Scotty.
I hope you guys are enjoying this. I'm having a blast, and
This,
we're
yeah.
still chugging along. I still got questions for you, so
Yay.
we're gonna keep going if you're all set for that.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's just a blessing.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm
Oh,
so
you're
happy that you were
precious.
able to
Thank
join
you.
me today.
Thank you.
So, I guess we should pause here. And do you have any questions for anybody in the audience? Maybe anything you would like to mention to them?
Oh, you mean me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were. I probably, probably like, who do you
That's
think
my
you're
bad.
talking to? No, 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 no. Well, um, I don't know if it's so much a question, but just more of a. I talked to Scotty about this earlier today. I have um, a really a drive to break down stigma in mental illness. I mean, I really my book. It's entertainment, but there's a deeper message there. I really have a deep compassion for people. I mean, at one point, I used to be homeless. I was. I had a past that was, you know, things that not that great. Wonderful parents, but other things that just didn't turn out that great. And it's very. I mean, honestly, God really has sustained me and helped me to be able to have a story, to be able to take bad things, if you will, and turn them into something that could maybe help somebody would be a biggest joy of mine, to be able to let people know that they're not alone. And every book of mine has a hotline for if you struggle with suicide issues or mental illnesses as well. And so, I mean, to me, that's really the meat of who I mean, I love writing, but I also want to, there has to be something in there, like something, some redemption, some hope for me as an author. It's not to say other people, and that's not even what I'm saying, but in my novels, it just runs in my family. I have a lot of experience with some of these issues, and I really just want to help people. That's kind of
That's
my.
fantastic, and it's such an honorable goal to be able to do that as well. And you
Thank
guys
you.
want to make sure you guys are following Diana, and of course, I got all of her social media. It's scrolling on the screen for you guys to see. You
Thank
can
you.
see her website, her Facebook,
Oh,
Instagram. Make
thank
sure you
you.
guys are giving much love over there and liking and subscribing. And joining her author community. We want to make sure that we're supporting each other, making sure that we're
Definitely.
all growing. And
Definitely.
I guess that's my next question is how can we best support you
Oh
going forward?
man.
Is there any
Well,
like events that you have coming up that you would
oh,
like to promote or
that's really sweet. So, well, tomorrow, Saturday, and I'm going to have a book signing in the Joliet Public Library off of Black Road at the Book and Bean Cafe at between 1 to 4 o'clock p.m. I just got asked to have a book table at a rock fest. I'm not really sure where it's at, so I'll let you know, Andrew, when I find that out. my character's a rocker, so I love rock and roll. That's just the way it is. And so, but that's my character. And I would say, obviously, of course, to buy my book, that would be very, very much. And then just to, I don't know, just to learn about how to break down stigma. People should be able to. There's a there's an organization, and I can't think of the name right now, in Chicago, that deals with breaking down stigma. And what they say is it's okay to not be okay. And I just want people to be able to talk about things so that people don't feel alone. I mean, we should be able to talk about diabetes and heart disease and then mental issues as well. I mean, that's really my oh man, I don't want people to suffer like that. It
Yeah.
just
It,
saddens me.
it's such a big epidemic in the world too, where there's so much of it going around, and I don't think that there's a lot of support systems that are available. And it's nice to know that there are some out there that we can really rely on in
Yeah,
our,
yeah,
our communities
yeah.
to help solve that
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. And so that to me would be, just for people to start the dialogue, on their own with their friends, or I mean, that doesn't mean every day, but you know what I mean. However it works out, for people to be able to, just to be human. I mean, all of us have issues to however degree it is, and so, you know, and I mean, I'm not diagnosing anybody. I'm not writing the DSM. There's nothing like that. It's just to really, so just to be able to call it what it is and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I would actually like to officially put you in the hot seat. We're going to get that segment going, but we're going to take a short break, very,
Yikes.
very short. And then when we come back, we're going to throw you right in the hot seat, and we'll see how you fare.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
All right. All right, folks. We'll be right back.
Uh, who I get here?
All right. So we should be
Yeah, I can
popping
hear
back up.
now.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so I just want to classify here, and I always like to remind our guests here. Sometimes in the station, it shows like the system is glitching, but when we go to the actual video, it's playing just fine.
Okay. Go. Okay.
So, like on my end, you and I will see like the "we'll be back" screen will be frozen. Sometimes it's some weird glitch that's been happening with StreamYard lately, but everybody else is seeing the show as is.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm
awesome.
looking on our second broadcast here. I'm like, all right, now I got to switch to the next segment
That's
and
awesome.
switch it
Okay. Well,
over.
that's comforting.
But yeah, here we are. It's the hot seat part
Oh,
two.
Lord. Okay. Help me, Jesus.
In this segment, the hot seat was a talk is best staple for the podcast, and essentially, I would ask the guests questions, um, questions that are completely random, and you have to pick between them. And
Okay.
of course, last week Nick got completely floored. His first time in the hot seat. He didn't get a chance to do it and talk his best, so he thought he prepared adequately for it, but
Oh,
I was able
Jesus.
to take him by surprise. So let's see how you do today. All right.
All right.
So here we go. Hot seat part 2. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Milk chocolate.
Science fiction or fantasy?
Fantasy.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Ebook or hardcover?
Hardcover.
Hardcover or paperback?
Ooh. Well, I'm going to say paperback because mine is right now, but I like hardcover too. I don't know. That's probably a convoluted question.
Here's the big one.
Answer.
Ebook or paperback?
Paperback.
Writing or reading?
Ah, writing.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Alien or predator?
Alien.
TV or movies?
Movies.
Oh man. Science fiction or romance?
Science fiction.
Science fiction. And that, of course, is our hot seat segment. You did pretty well. Congratulations. I'm super excited that we were able to get through that segment. And of course, the hot seat is always bringing you the must-have questions. And we're just moving on along here. So thank you again for participating in the hot seat. And of course, we always play off the hot seat with another promo. So here we go. All right. That was the hot seat. All right. So picking right back off where we left off.
Thank you. Thank you.
What did you think of the hot seat? I completely forgot to ask. What did you think? Like,
I actually like that because, that's something that's totally not about writing. It's about who you are, and it kind of catches you off and you have to go, wait a minute, is this or is this that? That's just kind of everyday stuff to a matter. And that's really important because it's the everyday stuff that feeds into writing.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it's always cool to be able to get to know somebody with those particular things. I always try to do my research and find something that is really going to pit you against your favorites. So like, sci-fi or fantasy, it's like, oh, come on,
I know, come on, really? Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing that for a while now, and I'm glad to bring that to the drop line.
That's really good. I'm just going to grab some water real quick. Sorry.
Yes, we must hydrate. We must stay healthy here. We're running about an hour now. Usually we start to wind the show down. But there is something that we typically do here on Drop a Line. And we usually ask the authors if they would like to provide a sample of their work, maybe read something or maybe show something. I don't know if you're able to do so being under contract or...
No, I think that's fine because I did that. Hang on, I just have to grab my book, so I apologize. I would have had it. No, I think that's totally fine because it's already out. I mean, I wouldn't be reading anything from book 2 right now. Well, actually, there is a sampling of book 2 in the end of the book. So, what do you want me to? You want me to read a little portion of it, like a little bit of chapter 1, or what do you?
Yeah, whichever you'd be more comfortable with. I can give you the floor and let you entrance the wonderful audience with your wonderful words.
You're so sweet. Okay, is this what other authors have done too?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I always like to give it a choice, and I always ask if it's okay first because I know if you're an independent author, usually it's fine because you're the boss and you can make all decisions. But I know we've had broad people on who would have loved to share their work, but they're unable to do so because they're under contract. Which is why we were perfectly, it would be perfectly fine if you couldn't, and I would understand.
No, I totally get that, and I just think for me now because it's out. That's, I think, but I mean, had this been, I mean, it is obviously under contract, but had this been where we were working on it, it wouldn't have been.
Right.
So I'm just going to read, and it's not going to read the whole thing, obviously, the whole prologue, because it is a little bit lengthy, but.
No, absolutely, because we want you to go out and buy the book. But of course, you can get this on Amazon, right?
Amazon, and Amazon Kindle, Amazon. And listen, ebooks are pretty cool. When we travel, well, not doing much traveling now, but when we do travel, I bring ebooks because let's face it, they take up no room, right? And
Right.
so, especially when we fly. So, this is the prologue, and the prologue is called Bequeathed.
All
I
right.
wish I had a better voice for reading. I'm not that
That's
great.
a really cool voice. And see, that's why I have the advantage of asking Alec. Alec loves reading the samples. And if you would ever like to submit a sample for Alec to read it
Oh,
during his live reads or on TikTok, he would be absolutely happy to do so. Or even if it's
okay.
just a book blurb for you.
Can you ask him to do that? Can you ask him to reach over?
Oh, yeah, I can reach out to him for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's the so this okay. So it's called Bequeathed. Dreams are a gift to the young to burn bright and long, bringing hope and light into the deepest darkness. Thundering gallops split the skies. Megethna, upon her horse of wind, charged through the clouds, her friend and kin, Dorian, astride beside her. Two other seraphs, Mistel and Raglan, followed in their wake. The friction from their horses whirled the air around them. Victory's gleaming, pearled hoofs and Triumph's sapphire eyes glinted in the setting sunlight as Megethna's hair whipped around her face in brown waves. Exhilarated, she encouraged Victory to go faster. A strand of Dorian's golden highlights flicked across her peripheral vision like a comet. Let's race to that farthest cloud. Dorian said nothing, but his posture said everything as he leaned into the wind. Neck and neck, the horses sailed through the air. The finish line approached, with Victory in the lead. Pawing the air, her horse glided through the cloud, winning the race. It really wasn't much of a race. As Dorian pulled up short, he became still. She caught the edge of a thought about science and creation, but backed out to respect his musings. The air continued to sail past her when the other Sarah's horses stopped next to her. Triumph wishes your attention, said Megethna. He most certainly does. If you don't mind, could you please read the scroll? Patience is a virtue, you know, a virtue some lack, he said with a wink. The winded horses panted silvery mist, hovering in place with each other when Dorian rolled out the scroll. As he opened it, she noticed the gauzy paper and how stiff it was in the wind. It remained resolute and statuesque in its purpose. Emboldened words written in ink of light rested upon the document's fibers. As Dorian read the ancient text, she hummed, following the flow of writing on her sword, drawn from its golden sheath. Words appeared and disappeared onto the blade, offering hope and a glorious restoration. After the reading, she was refreshed yet pensive, for these words would also seem hostile to humanity. Triumph lifted his head and shook his mane, while Dorian patted his neck. Yes, my dear one, the words were a river of love spilling out from the one voice of time. Carrying on with her humming, Megethna smiled in response to his words. Her eyes continued to gaze upon the living writings on her sword. With their mission at hand, Megethna prompted Victory to resume their journeys. Fetlocks glistened over powerful haunches, pawing the wind even faster around them. The other seraphs followed her lead, their movements synchronized with Dorian's. From her sword, lethal double-edged flashes of silver arched in choreographed beauty. Words streamed across the swords at a steady pace and never fluctuated. In a fraction of a blink, all swords shot up, arms fully extended, as the immortals sang with an ear-deafening shout, "To glory!" The horses flew ever faster to their destination, Oak Park, Illinois. And there's more, but I mean, it's you know.
Wow, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was wonderful.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, so it's that part of the day. Of course, we want to mention a great thank you to author Diana Estell.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for coming out. This has been a fantastic interview. Please make sure you're following her on all our social media accounts. Make sure you're going to purchase that wonderful book of hers. Um, yeah, this is really cool, and to have another fantasy and sci-fi enthusiast on the chat with us. Um,
Yay!
Such a wonderful interview. I hope we get the chance to do this again fairly soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to say to the audience before we hit the happy trail, as I like to say, hit the road.
Honestly, it's just an honor. If people would have seen all of us writers, no one sees us writing, right? I was in house shoes or robe or, middle of the night. And it's never, I hope it never becomes anything but to be humble in the fact that Alec had this platform, that you are helping him out, and of course you're a writer. And if I mean, if I would have known this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had all this self-doubt and um, very low self-esteem, if you will. So it is just a deep honor for people to even be on this program. It is a literal blessing to me. I mean, I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
And we definitely appreciate you coming on and giving us a little bit of your time. Um, but yeah, that's our show for Drop Line Takeover Part 2. Join us next week. We're going to be sitting down with editor and artist Brielle. And of course, she is very pivotal in the creation of Sanguinary Song as
Ooh,
my editor and as my artist, who's very important for a lot of the artistic drawings that are out there right now for all the promotional effects. So,
yes, thank you. That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, it's going to be a fantastic show next week. We'll
Same
be right
time,
back
same
here,
time,
same time, same
same
place.
time. Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a really awesome show, and I hope you get a chance to join us.
Yes.
So, on behalf of Diana and I, we would like to say thank you for joining our show, and have
Yes.
a absolute wonderful night.
All right. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you.